on the position of what South Africa and Algeria, for example, hold regarding the Sahara. Notwithstanding, Jacob Zuma went, and I don't see. I just want to find out what law did he break, and that could be helpful. We have at the moment a number of delegations, whether they're going to the United States or elsewhere. Obviously, there seems to be something amiss within the Department of International Relations Corporation. There is a suspicion, at least for many of us who are sitting observing, that there is a lack of trust of the foreign policy interventions of South Africa in these countries. Jacob Zuma was welcomed by Morocco, and he did what he did. And what we have at the moment is the South African government, of course, complaining about what Jacob Zuma has done, but we still don't know what law he broke. I'm still not convinced nor aware of what law did Jacob Zuma.
But we have President Zuma who went to Morocco. President Zuma is from South Africa. He's a former head of state. He's the president of Umkhonto weSizwe. He was the president of this country. Today you have General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, who told us what is happening in South Africa. Your leaders are quiet about those things. Today we are living in a country with the highest unemployment rate. But your leaders are doing nothing. Some of you, Oguhuti, you are obsessed about President Zuma. Most of you are unemployed. And today you want to speak about Morocco, you want to speak about President Jacob Zuma.
But the other thing you need to remember is that the normalization of relations between South Africa and Morocco occurred during the tenure of Jacob Zuma as the president of this country. Morocco was one of the first countries that supported the struggle against apartheid. It supported the PAC and the African National Congress. Also, by the way, it supported Algeria, which is now, of course, working together with other countries to continue with the cessation of the autonomy. Morocco has played a role, not only for other countries in Africa who were fighting for their liberation, but this country in particular received its assistance in the beginning from Morocco. So you've got 2 points which you have to consider as we discuss this this situation. One is that, and the majority of African countries have taken a different position. Their latest one to do so was Ghana and Kenya.
N'oubliez pas que le Maroc aujourd'hui est en train de gagner sur le plan diplomatique. Les Américains ont reconnu que cette partie sahraoui appartient au Maroc. Et d'ailleurs, ils ne sont pas les seuls. Le roi du Maroc a dit qu'ils veulent aussi savoir que les gens leur disent clairement quelle est leur position et que les relations futures du Maroc avec les autres pays seront en relation avec la position des pays par rapport à cette question. Ça veut dire que le Maroc est en train de conforter sa posture sur le plan diplomatique. Ils sont en train de gagner progressivement ce terrain, contrairement à l'Algérie.
I think we might just be left with the hot potato. We must remember how far we are from North Africa. And I always have this thought, what if all countries decide to take a position pro-Morocco? And what if Algeria, who is the neighbor of Morocco, decides to somehow begin to negotiate some rapprochement with Morocco? Where is South African position going to be if the majority of the countries in Africa, including Algeria, decide to have a certain position regarding Western Sahara? So we have to be very careful moving forward. But I think there are opportunities that are presenting themselves, and we must grab them with both hands. And I think South Africans need to be given a chance to understand precisely what's going on in Morocco. Most of whom, by the way, don't really get it. South Africans are not really that educated to understand and discern these political disagreements that we have with Morocco.
We're misled by the media, and all because of even this mainstream media is protecting him. And that's why even the things that are supposed to be trending are not trending. Right now, your leaders of all this stupid political organization, the things that they are speaking about right now is President Zuma. To speak about the injustice, to speak about izinto ezenzeke South Africa, to even reveal the names of some of those about the things that they are doing. But those things even today are not being addressed. Those things even today, some of these people that you call your leaders have not spoken about those issues.
As I said, this is a very academic topic within international relations, and certainly South Africans are not really aware of the bone of contention between ourselves and Morocco. And this thing has just been amplified for no reason. I really do believe that if we do some rapprochement in terms of improving our relations with Morocco, you are likely to have benefit and employment opportunities, including economic growth in this country, because Morocco has got a lot to offer, and they have in the past, of course, signaled interest to do business with South Africa. We know, for example, that companies such as Sand, which is one of the biggest companies in this country, is present in Morocco and is doing business. Other companies, including the holding company and subsidiaries of We Buy Cars, for example, are moving into Morocco. So there is that potential business. But importantly, people-to-people's relations are important. And the other thing to mention, notwithstanding the tension that's been amplified, South Africa and Morocco enjoy full diplomatic relations. The other thing which I think is, the other factor which I think is very important, what is our national interest in South Africa? I mean, South Africa has got priorities in terms of its foreign relations, including, of course, human rights and economic growth and seeing the African continent prospering. But one of the things that Mandela left us with as a legacy was the ability to reconcile foes and to try and have a better world, particularly in terms of conflict resolution. I'm just not quite sure why that prioritization takes a backseat when it comes to South Africa and Morocco.
Il ne faut pas oublier que le Maroc avait quitté la mer de l'Union africaine, l'OUA, parce que l'OUA avait accepté la RSD et l'Algérie défend mort du puce, et c'est ça qui avait amené le roi Hassan II à quitter l'organisation de l'unité africaine. Heureusement, le Maroc est revenu à la raison.
Morocco was readmitted into the AU. I can't remember how many years ago this was now. We do have diplomatic... Say that again, 2017. Is that correct? Yes. 2017. Thank you for that. So they are part of the African family of nations. From a South African point of view, we do enjoy bilateral relations with them, trade and full diplomatic relations. So is this really, would we even be having this conversation, I wonder, if it were any other politician and not somebody who also happened to be a former head of state? Is it not maybe a case of this offending ANC sensibilities rather than South African government sensibilities?
The assumption that Morocco occupied, the word occupation is a bit traumatic because it was a clumsy evacuation by the Spanish authorities or those that were controlling governing that part of Morocco, that led to the situation that we find ourselves in. It's not like Morocco went on to occupy a territory that is disputed. And traditionally, of course, arguably people will say whether it belonged to whoever, but it was not an occupation. It was not like we see what's happening at the moment in Palestine and in Gaza in particular.
Including talking on things such as peace and stability and prosperity for Africa. We all know that the entire Sahel is a zone that is already destabilized because of so many reasons. And the Sahara issue is one of the reasons why this area will continue to be in this chaotic situation. So if you look at, for example, the Sahel, you look at the problem in Mali with the Tuaregs and the Azawads. You look at the problem of Burkina Faso. You look at Niger. These countries have very similar issue. The issue there is one of a situation where not only that the societies are being destabilized, but that there is an agenda to want to break the countries in these regions into separate entities for different reasons.
The second point is we have to be careful of the translation. In this country, we've got people who want their own autonomous powers and autonomy and self-governance, and that is the Afrikaner community. They've already started in Orania, and they've got ambition of expanding. I'm very concerned about these trappings of secessionists because it opens up all sorts of things. You know, people who want to live by themselves and having their own cultures, languages are always very problematic because that begets racism, that begets national discrimination against the other. I'm very much for multiculturalism and very much for people living amongst themselves. But once you start opening this Pandora's box of encouraging secessionist movement to have their own countries, we might just find ourselves one day, especially with many other formations and groupings in South Africa who have ambitions of such, including some who are now talking about an independent Western Cape. What are we going to do then? What kind of political justification are we going to use to discourage those kind of attempts? So we have to be very, very careful.
All right.
Just clarify me about the involvement of Algeria. What's the story? It's because they're fighting over the territory. They also want it.
So in 1975, when Spain, which was sort of the neo-colonialist empire in that region, pulled out in 1975, but Algeria maintained that they needed to have some kind of independence. So Algeria is always, since 1975, and especially the Polisario, which is the armed group of, it's like the NC and so forth, MK, and MK. So most of them are base funded and everything else sitting in Algeria. And there's a militaristic part of it. And people are saying, we're now beyond this. Can we sit down and figure out a way, some kind of diplomatic approach or development in the region, a regional integrated development approach to see what works best. But there is an evolving mentality within the NC and saying, how practical is this? Can we keep going on and ask some other groups to secede or create another state? And that's the debate, but it's a very difficult debate within the African National Congress, within the government itself. However, the ability, as we know, to do business, we know the politics is fraught, but if you use business, you can change the nature. You can also use social, cultural issues.
I think it's something right to do, particularly given the fact that there is no consensus in terms of the position of South Africa towards Morocco and that of Polisario. There is a sizable number of African countries who would like to see this resolved, but importantly, who have now since turned into supporting Morocco's position in terms of its continual control with autonomy, certain limited autonomy in the Western Sahara. So South Africa, I think South African foreign policy is a bit archaic in this regard, and it prioritizes other things instead of reconciliation, which is also one of our national interests, at least when it comes to countries in Africa. But importantly, I think there is an opportunity here of a rapprochement between ourselves and Morocco. And I think this Zuma-Morocco visit saga is presenting an opportunity, and South Africa should grab that opportunity of not necessarily digging its heels in terms of continuing to protect a position. But let us see what we can do.
Tembisa Fagute, your final thoughts then.
Well, Western Sahara is not a mirror image of Gaza and the West Bank, at which I've worked and know it quite well. The people of Western Sahara have got the right to move freely as they wish. They go to Rabat, Casablanca and other places in Morocco without any hindrance. What I think is important and we need to be careful of, and I think you might just be surprised that actually most people might prefer to live together and have one country. So Morocco has conceded to give autonomy, but as I've said earlier on, my greatest worry as a South African is that what happens if there's a rapprochement between Algeria and Morocco? Where are we going to be? Are we going to continue? We're going to reconsider our position? And this is a real question. You never know what could happen. At the moment, our greatest ally and the country that we support and follow in terms of partnering in the solidarity is Algeria. And you could just run in the next couple of years where both countries engage in some political rapprochement, and South Africa just will be left with a hot potato, not knowing exactly what to do. And this is a real question, and it's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon, but we need to be careful of that. And again, of course, the trapping of secessionists.
It's been a most fascinating discussion, and thank you for your contributions to it. I think we're all a little bit more educated, Tebisa Fawute, to use your words, about what this actually is about. Every time we hear reference made to Western Sahara, now I think we have a much better picture, and I appreciate. Thank you so much.
Ce qui s'est passé, c'est que depuis toujours, l'Algérie, le régime algérien, pour être plus précis, a toujours refusé tout ce qui pouvait faire la promotion du Maroc au niveau des médias publics. C'est extraordinaire. Qu'on le veuille ou pas, c'est l'actualité. C'est ça le journalisme également. Qu'on le veuille ou pas, c'est un événement. Mais dans un média, quand il y a un événement, le passer sous silence, ce n'est plus du journalisme. Mais en Algérie, il ne fallait pas le faire parce que généralement, quand la politique se mêle à une chose, on ne se retrouve plus. Et c'est simplement ce qui s'est passé. Le différend entre le Maroc et l'Algérie se ressent au niveau du sport. Mais c'est quelle forme de journalisme ça? C'est une censure extrêmement forte sur tout ce qui touche à une forme de promotion pour le Maroc. C'est pas la première fois. La première fois qu'une équipe africaine arrivait en demi-finale, même si on veut le prendre sous l'angle arabe, c'était la première fois qu'une équipe arabe arrivait en demi-finale. Ce qui est curieux, c'est que ça date de longtemps. Le journal Al-Khabar, qui est un journal très connu en Algérie, mais en 1976, pendant la CAN, avait fait exactement la même chose. Le Maroc a gagné la Guinée, on a parlé de défaite de la Guinée. On n'a pas parlé de victoire du Maroc. C'est pas la première fois. Pendant les Jeux méditerranéens qui se déroulaient en Algérie même, à Oran, la presse, une des presses, a mis en une l'équipe nationale du Maroc. Même chose, le premier responsable de cette presse a été démis de ses fonctions. C'est pour dire simplement que du côté algérien, sur cette relation avec le Maroc, souvent, il n'y a même pas de communiqué, il n'y a pas de prise de position, mais il y a des actes qui montrent aux gens clairement que ce chemin-là, il ne faut pas l'emprunter du tout. Personne ne doit faire la promotion du Maroc, même pas dans le domaine du sport.
Alors, Mamadou, est-ce qu'on voit les mêmes réalités au niveau du royaume chérifien?
Non, la réalité n'est pas la même au niveau du royaume chérifien. Au niveau du royaume chérifien, il n'est pas interdit de parler de l'Algérie, mais ça veut dire que le Maroc accepte d'aller dans le sens d'une solution.
Alors, c'est très difficile alors d'exercer le métier de journaliste sportif dans ce pays, surtout lorsque les clubs marocains, qui sont fréquents, il faut le préciser, au niveau des compétitions africaines et des équipes marocaines jouent.
C'est comme le problème, c'est de citer le royaume chérifien. Maintenant, imaginez, je suis reporter sportif. Ça n'a vraiment pas de sens d'amener la censure jusqu'à ce point. Puisque finalement, les journalistes se cherchent et le plus souvent, ce que les journalistes font, c'est d'éviter cette question. Tout le monde avait peur du retour du bâton quand tu vas te mettre à dire voilà ce que le Maroc a fait.
Est-ce que la presse algérienne a un mot à dire?
Mais la presse algérienne a un mot à dire parce que les presses relativement libres algériennes, en plus des Algériens de l'extérieur, c'est eux qui ont mis la puce à l'oreille en disant aux gens il a été limogé parce que la presse est en train de jouer un rôle, mais elle ne peut pas aller très loin parce que souvent dans ce genre de situation, quand les journalistes savent que vous ne pouvez pas toucher ce sujet, ou bien vous ne pouvez pas le toucher de façon à respecter l'éthique et la déontologie, on préfère passer de côté et ça devient de l'autocensure. Et sur le Maroc, c'est ce que fait une bonne partie des journalistes algériens pour ne pas avoir de problème, ils s'autocensurent eux-mêmes.